Hello everyone, and welcome to our presentation on situated learning theory. Our Group E1 members are Carmen D'Angelo, Jamie Bold, Judith Ware, Sydney Berries, and myself, Fabio Verdugo. Today we will explore how learning occurs through real-world experiences, social interaction, and active participation in meaningful activities. In this presentation, we will begin with an overview of situated learning theory, followed by an introduction to the key theorists behind it. We will then discuss how this theory influences instruction, learning design, and training practices. Additionally, we will examine how situated learning theory can be applied in both higher education and organizational settings, as well as consider its strengths and limitations. In this presentation, you will have a clear understanding of how learning is shaped by context and why engaging learners in authentic environments is essential for meaningful learning. Situated learning theory emphasizes that learning is most effective when it occurs within real-life contexts, rather than viewing learning as the isolated acquisition of knowledge. It highlights that understanding is developed through active participation in meaningful, authentic activities. This approach, knowledge is deeply connected to the context in which it is learned. As a result, learners are more likely to retain and apply what they have learned when it mirrors how that knowledge is used in real-world situations. Social interaction is also a critical component. Learners construct understanding through collaboration, discussion, and shared experiences with others. Overall, situated learning theory suggests that learning is not just about acquiring information, it is about actively engaging, practicing, and participating within a community. It also encourages cooperative activities that challenges the learners to think critically and apply hands-on or kinesthetic skills. Situated learning theory offers several strengths that make it highly effective across many learning environments. One of its primary advantages is that it's focused on real-world application, enabling learners to develop practical, transferable skills that can be directly applied in professional and everyday contexts. It promotes collaboration and social interaction, which enhances engagement, motivation, and deeper understanding through shared experiences. However, there are important limitations to consider. Designing authentic learning experiences can be time-intensive and often requires significant resources, careful planning, and access to real-world environments. This approach may also be challenging to implement in large or traditional classroom settings where supporting individualized participation can be more difficult. Additionally, novice learners may need more structure, guidance, and support to prevent confusion and ensure learning objectives are met effectively. Situated learning theory was developed by Jean Lave and Etienne Wentger in 1991. It challenges traditional ideas that learning happens only through memorization or individual thinking. Instead, it emphasizes that learning is a social process that takes place in real-world contexts. The theory suggests that people learn best when they actively participate in meaningful activities alongside others. Over time, learners move from being beginners to novices to becoming more experienced members of a community. This process is called legitimate peripheral participation, where learners gradually gain skills through involvement. Overall, the theory highlights that learning is not separate from doing. It happens through experience, interaction, and participation in real-life situations. The development of situated learning theory came at a time when researchers were rethinking how learning actually works. Traditional models focused heavily on internal thinking and treating knowledge as something individuals simply absorb. However, earlier work, especially from theorists like Vygotsky, pointed toward the importance of social interaction and cultural context. Building on those ideas, scholars began to argue that learning should be connected to the authentic experiences rather than isolated academic tasks. As a result, the field shifted toward viewing learning as something that happens through participation and engagement in real practices. This perspective also helped explain why students sometimes struggle to apply classroom knowledge outside of school settings. When we look at how situated learning theory is applied today, several key factors shape how it works in real learning environments. One major influence is the use of structured support like scaffolding and coaching, where instructors guide learners as they build skills and gradually take on more responsibility. This helps bridge the gap between beginner and expert levels. Another important factor is reflection. Learners are encouraged to think about their experiences, which helps them connect what they've done with what they've learned. More modern contexts. Technology plays a growing role. Tools like AI systems, simulations, and augmented reality create interactive spaces where learners can practice skills in ways that feel realistic and engaging. Altogether, these influences show how the theory is not just conceptual. It actively shapes how learning experiences are designed and delivered today. Situated learning is based on the premise of participating and collaborating in group settings. Social media is a huge factor for situated learning, especially in this modern era of technology. All forms of social media, for example, Instagram, X, Facebook, etc., are free and open to anyone who has access to the internet. This has both good and bad effects on the user. A positive example that can be looked at is if there is someone who wants to go into a specific career and learns through the shared experience of others who have already walked that job path. They can join different groups and forums on social media to further their foundational knowledge about their potential future. On the contrary, social media can have a negative effects due to its wide reach. People are able to lie or exaggerate without any consequences, and that can directly influence their audience and anybody who is trying to gain insight on a certain topic. Legitimate peripheral participation describes how people become part of a community through social interaction. Communities are all based on a shared domain of interest, which allows the members to have a common baseline. First, learners are novices, which means they mainly observe. They watch how others behave, how tasks are done, and how the community functions from the outside. As they become more comfortable, they move into active participation. This is where they start engaging in meaningful ways, such as completing larger tasks. Over time, they can reach the level of an expert, where they demonstrate mastery of the subject and may even mentor other lower levels in the community. An important part of this process is that collaboration is required. Learning doesn't happen in isolation. It happens through working with and learning from others. LPP also requires patience, as moving from one stage to another happens over time. Situated learning theory has significantly influenced how instructors and learning designers approach teaching. Rather than focusing on abstract instruction, it emphasizes learning within authentic, real-world contexts. This means lessons are intentionally designed to mirror real-life situations, allowing learners to apply knowledge in meaningful and practical ways. The theory also highlights the importance of social interaction in the learning process. As a result, instructional strategies often incorporate collaborative activities, where learners engage in discussion, problem solving, and shared experiences to deepen their understanding. Additionally, the role of the teacher shifts from a traditional lecturer to a facilitator of learning. In this role, instructors provide guidance, feedback, and scaffolding to support learners as they actively construct their knowledge. For example, one study demonstrated how students used an augmented reality application to learn vocabulary by interacting with real-world objects. This approach helped bridge the gap between classroom learning and everyday experiences, making learning more engaging and relevant. Situated learning theory also increases student engagement by placing learning in authentic, meaningful contexts. When students are immersed in real-world or simulated environments, learning becomes more interesting and relevant, which increases motivation. The theory also emphasizes social interaction, where students learn through dialogue, collaboration, and participation with others. This helps them actively engage rather than passively receive information. Additionally, learning through experience and interaction with environment supports deeper understanding and knowledge retention. Studies have shown that when tools like mobile augmented reality are used, students demonstrate higher engagement and improved comprehension. For example, in a study about augmented reality, students used an app to explore Tang Dynasty environments, which helped them feel more connected to the content. In the study, students interacted with virtual poets by asking questions and having conversations, which increased their participation. Building on the impact this theory has on teaching and engagement, we can now examine its application in real-world settings. In higher education, situated learning theory emphasizes learning through active participation rather than passive lecture-based instruction. According to Leib and Wagner, learning occurs within communities of practice, where learners begin as observers and gradually take on more responsibility as they develop knowledge and skills. A strong example of this can be seen in clinical rotations or career and technical education programs. In these settings, students first observe experienced professionals, then practice skills with guidance, and eventually perform tasks independently. This progression highlights how learning becomes more meaningful and effective when students are actively engaged in authentic tasks and learning within real-world contexts. In workplace training, situated learning theory is especially evident, as learning often occurs through performing real job tasks. Rather than relying solely on individual study, learning takes place through participation, interaction, and collaboration within the work environment. New employees typically begin by shadowing experienced staff, observing how tasks are performed. They then practice with guidance and support, and over time transition to working independently. This progression reflects movement from novice to full participation within community of practice. This approach not only helps individuals build confidence, but also supports the development of practical, job-relevant skills, ultimately leading to greater effectiveness in their roles. Thank you for watching this presentation on situated learning theory. This approach highlights the importance of learning through real-world experiences, collaboration, and active participation. As you move forward, consider how you can apply these ideas to create meaningful and engaging learning environments. The following slide includes the references used in this presentation. Thank you for watching.